Tactical Team.
Hey there everybody, this is Malorian, this is the Orc Tactical Team, and this is going to become a special one because it's something that I have a certain opinion on that it seems like I'm really by myself. There's a lot of people out there, especially a lot of the bigger names, and they all disagree with me. But you know what? I am here, and I'm going to be armed with something crazy, and it's called math. And we're going to go through this, we're going to prove this. To an extent, and let's just jump right into it. What am I talking about? I'm talking about cannons, and in this one here, it's more the defensive cannons. Now, I'm in a unique position where I'm on both sides of the fence as far as the armies I play go. I have a wide variety of the armies, and I mean, I got my dwarves. I got my dwarves where I take a cannon every single time. And then I have other armies where I don't take a cannon because I don't even have one. You know, a lot of these other armies, they're the ones that have, you know, the monster, like my high elves, or, you know, maybe it's like the orcs and goblins, or maybe it's the whatever, where I have the things where cannons are shooting at me. So I get to see what it's like to use a cannon, and I get to see what it is to be shot at by with, you know, a cannon. So, like I said, right away, a lot of people out there, and it seems to be pretty much everyone, say that, you know, cannons are broken. Cannons, you know, when it comes to what's going to be fixed in Ninth, cannons need to be fixed because clearly these things are like laser guided. They hit every time, and they just are decimating everything and making it so that monsters are completely useless, and you might as well not even take them. And I just don't have that stance whatsoever. And so, like I said, I'm gonna warn you right now. I'm gonna be coming at this, first of all, with math. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to break down the math behind this and all this. So, you know, that might be a little bit boring if you've already done these numbers. But hey, if you already know the numbers, you probably don't have that same opinion. Then after that, I'm going to be coming to going more with some other parts. Some part of it that you can't really put the math equation to because these are kind of, you know, the fluffy gray area for the battlefield. And then also just meta game in general. So let's just start with the math. We'll just jump right in there. And really what it comes down to, and we're going to start all of this, is how far away should you be aiming whenever you're shooting at a monster? And the cold hard fact is 10 inches from the back. If you do all the math, that's the best because, hey, let's go to the next step. Let's say, well, why don't I do 8 from the back? Well, that's because if you roll a 10 on that first shot, it overshoots, and you know, otherwise, you know, if you're 10 away, you got a 6 out of 6 chance of hitting this thing. If you got a misfire first time, you're going to be hitting that thing, and then as you go back, it reduces. So basically, when you're doing the math down for the, you know, being 10 away, it goes 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and of course, a misfire is just not going to happen. And if you do it from the other side, well, or like if you're 8 away. Well, then, of course, a 10 misses, so then it goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 with a misfire. So right away, we know 10 away is the best way to do this. This is the way that you should be doing it. Now I'm going to switch over here to my Excel, and we're going to start talking more about this math. Now, you probably wonder, like this is laser-guided, Malorian. You know, like, I hear what you're saying, but, you know, I mean, now that you got this math down, you hit every single time. Well, it works out that really what you do for this here is that every one of those rolls is based off of 6, right? You have 6 different combinations that dice could be for the first roll, and then 6 combinations of what it can be after. And you put that together, and basically you get a number out of 36 for what it could really be. And you sum this all up, and it actually works out to being 55.6%. So with that, that means that if I'm shooting a cannon at a single character, just standing out there, I have a little bit better than 50-50 odds of hitting him. This doesn't sound laser guided, does it? This is like, wow, this is like 50-50 basically. Now, the next part of this equation that we don't even really have in there yet is the whole thing that you still have to roll to wound. Well, it's on a 2+, but still, 1/6 of the times you're not going to wound this guy. Well, we apply that to the 55.6%, and also now we're getting 46.3. So now less than half the time are you even going to be wounding this guy that's there, right? So you know, and let's say that there's something else, or let's say we're shooting at this character. He might have a lookout, sir. Just like for some reason you have a warrior priest that's standing outside beside some halberdiers. You could have that 4+ lookout, sir. So this could be reduced even more, so that less than a quarter of the time are you actually will be doing any damage to this warrior priest. But okay, we're not talking about lookout, sirs and stuff yet. We'll come to all that stuff later. Well, the next thing to keep in mind is, well, what about how many wounds this have? Because clearly the thing you're shooting at is not just going to have one wound all the time. A lot of times you're shooting at war machines, at chariots, at monsters. So clearly they're not going to have all this stuff. So again, we do these things down with the math. You know, of course, if it has 6 wounds, you have a 1 in 6 chance of rolling that 6. If it has 3 wounds, then you know you have to roll the 1, 2, or 3, blah, blah, blah. And really when you work this all out, you're going to be having it now so that when you multiply these across, this thing just gets even worse. Like I'm just making sure that there's no math problem. This is one of the things I want to make sure here before we get bad here. But okay, of course, if it has 1 wound, it's just going straight across. Obviously, we're going to do at least 1 wound, so we're still at the 46.3%. But as we keep on going, this just gets worse and worse. 38.6, 30.9, 23.1, 15.4, 7.7. Now, that's just a lot of numbers, gobbledygook, but let's just make this a little bit more relative. If we're shooting at, you know, some regular dragon with 6 wounds, that means if I'm shooting a cannon at this, I have a 7.7 chance of actually destroying the thing. That's it. That's pretty remote, isn't it? Well, how about if I'm shooting at a war machine? We all know that a cannon shooting at a war machine will take it out because laser guided, easier to get that 3+ the wound, that war machine's out of here. Well, it turns out that there's really only a 30.9%. So less than a third of the time will this actually even work. So it's really not coming out to being like, wow, like this is amazing. This is just automatic. It's not automatic. There's a lot of things to this. Now, right now I'm going to say like that's basically the math portion almost, because what we've been doing right now is this is all the math for shooting at a single point. But of course monsters aren't a single point. Monsters have bases. They got, you know, I got something to shoot across here. So now we're going to go over to our trusty unit converter. So let's say that we're shooting at an eagle, right? Eagles are a war machine. They can, I mean, the whole size thing for war machines is a little bit iffy. Let's just say an eagle. An eagle is 40 millimeters, which turns into 1.6 inches, which really doesn't change the math at all. So really, when you're shooting at an eagle, you know, we're talking about that 30.9% chance of actually destroying it because it's basically a single point with 3 wounds. You know, it's not all that super likely, and meanwhile, we're shooting at this 100-point or whatever cannon at it to try and destroy it. Well, okay. Well, that's an eagle. That's kind of small. Let's go to something bigger. Let's go to, you know, your demon princes, stuff like that, and that's going to be a 50. Well, that's still less than 2 inches. To be fair, it is 1.9685. So basically 2, but the big thing that I want to be kind of showing here is that, sure, it's like Malorian, you are cutting hairs. Come on, that's 2 inches. Well, fair enough, but however, when you got guys just lazily saying, oh, 10 from the back, well, you know, if you're not kind of going at an angle and going for like 10 from that back corner, and they're being sloppy and saying straight up, straight across, 10 from the middle, guess what? You're basically still shooting at a single point, and you don't have that 2-inch difference. Now, again, we're going to go back to the math, and we're going to say, well, what happens if we are saying it is 2 across? Really what that math says then is that even things like on an 8, you're automatically hitting those things. Because whether you're rolling, you know, the 8 or whatever, or the 10, it's going to be landing on that. So when you're doing your math and going across here, instead of it going to 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 0 for that grouping going down, it's going to be 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, and then the 0, because the misfire is always going to stop and sink and then not go anymore. Well, all of a sudden, when we do this, what we have is what's your probability to wound good old Mr. You know, Demon Prince guy? 55.6%. Again, we're pretty close to 50-50. Demon Prince, let's say 4 wounds. That goes up to a 27.8% chance of taking the guy down. Not very automatic, is it? Like, here we are, and you hear some complaints like, man, my Demon Prince was just killed with this cannon, and it's like every single time. It takes one shot and he goes down. Well, you know what? I mean, this should be happening 1 out of every 4 times pretty much, right? Like, this is not that a very big likely thing. Now, we have other stuff, right? Like chariots and monsters, and the monsters that are on the chariot bases, and those are basically 100 long, 100 millimeters. So if we put that in, that's going to be turning out to 3.94. Again, you know, if they just say lazily, I'm shooting 10 from the back, technically, that's still just like the last math, right? If we go and say, okay, we're not going to cut straws and we're going to kind of angle a little bit, well, then okay, now it's going to be going down the math going 6, 6, 6, 5, 4. Now we have a 62%, 62.5 to actually wound, and a lot of these monsters, let's say it's a chariot with 3 wounds, 41.7%. Only a 50% chance, basically worse than that, that if you shoot a chariot at a cannon at my board chariot, that's actually going to destroy it. If you're shooting at some 5-wound monster, we're talking only a 20.8% chance. And the big thing with a lot of these monsters is that now that people are used to this, well, they just turn them, right? When I'm setting up my phoenixes for that first turn, or when I'm going up the board, I am turning to not give that full. So all of a sudden, with going with my phoenix, you know, it's going back to the 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 0. And if you want to do 5 wounds to me, guess what? You got an 18.5% chance. And that's before my 5+ ward. And that's something where, of course, it's going to be, you know, based off the situation for everything else. But that's what I'm trying to say is that even when you go and extend these bases, for the most part, there's some mitigation you can do by turning, and then there's mitigations by other things too, by, let's say, it might have a ward save or something like that. Let's say it's a Hell Cannon, and, you know, it has a 5+ ward and a 5-point chance that it might just go onto a handler, basically, a crew guy at the back, right? When you start putting these things together, it's like, man, these cannons don't have a good chance of killing these monsters whatsoever. So now we're going to even make this even worse. And this is where, you know, I'm just going to tell you right now, we're done with the math. If this math and me just saying numbers have been completely boring you and, you know, you're done with this garbage, you know, guess what? I'm done with talking to numbers. I'm not going to say that anymore. Well, the next thing to take in part with this, with these already low numbers and probabilities of cannons killing these guys, is to talk about how you can mitigate them in other ways. Like I just said, there's some simple stuff where you can turn them like that. With the character I was talking about before, he might have that lookout, sir. He might have a ward save. And again, I mean, we hear about stuff like, you know, cannons just aren't fair because they'll just shoot at the unit and eventually you're going to fail that lookout, sir, and then you're just going to die. But we just went through the math there. We saw how hard it was to hit that single point already and do that wound. If you put in a 2+ lookout, sir, possibly a 4+ ward save, go ahead, shoot your cannons at me all day. You know, the probability of this happening is so remote, go ahead and waste that cannon shot. Now, there's even a lot of other things you can do as well to mitigate these cannons. I'm just going to start with the very easiest one, and that's going to be kill the cannon. Of course, if you have something like chameleons or something like that that can scout on, shoot the cannon. You know what? When I was playing my high elves there, one of the best ways that I take out a war machine first turn, just shoot it. Set up my archers right across from that war machine. I have 30-inch range with my longbows. Shoot it. If I get 3 6s, goodbye cannon. You are gone. And it works out very well. You know, you don't need to have all this stuff like the chameleons and stuff. Like if you have that, that's fantastic. First turn, move up, poison the goddamn thing off. If you don't, if you have longbows, hooray, go and shoot it that way. Sometimes as well, when I was trying to get that extra 6 in there, shoot a fireball, shoot some sort of magic missile its way. You know, all you need is 3 6s. And if you have a lot of things working together, you know, you should be able to take out that cannon first turn if you're focusing on it and you build your list to do that. Now, let's go with some other things, which is going to be like how you use your monster first turn. Well, one of the biggest things to know about a way the cannon shoots is that it can't try and shoot if there's any probability of it hitting its own guys. So normally, let's assume that both sides deploy at their full 12 up. Well, on a 4-foot board, oh, a little bit of math here, sorry guys, you are 24 inches apart. A monster, if we're talking about one of the flying ones, can fly 20 inches. Fly it on up. I'm now 4 inches from the front, and guess what? Probably a lot of times now, you can't do the 10 inches from the back because that 10 inches could be in your own guys. So now you're having to take that and move it in front of your line, and that's giving me a better probability that you're going to overshoot on that first shot, increasing my survivability. Of course, if I'm a slower monster, I can't fly, that's not so much the case, but with that same thing and talking about it as well, about how that rule works where you can't shoot your own guys, oddly enough, one of the best places to be is on the other side of that main line. You just fly over it, and if you're between the cannon and their own units, it's like, well, if I roll 10 and 10, I'm hitting my own guys. I might as well just grape shot at this point because I probably don't have any legal firing lane to try and shoot this guy, right? So you have that. The other thing that a lot of people just completely get lazy about and they don't really use is that you have to see the point that you are shooting at. So let's say again that you just went and you flew up in front of that big unit that's at their front line. Well, not only is it an issue that they might not be able to place it exactly 10 inches from the back, it is also an issue that they might not be able to be shooting anywhere at all because where they want to shoot between your monster and their unit, they can't see it. If they get down and try and draw a line of sight, if there's a lot of bodies there, what are you going to do? You can't see it to shoot it. So that's a very big thing that a lot of people just take for granted. Like, oh, yeah, 10 from the back, shoot your cannon, blah, blah, blah. And they just don't take the time to actually go and make sure it's all being done legit. Past this as well, you really have to be using these linear obstacles. If a cannon hits a linear obstacle, it just stops. So when you're setting up your terrain, and if you have monsters, for God's sakes, set up these linear pieces right where you're going to be deploying your monster and where you're going to be moving up your first turn. Have that all set up so that you have like these little bunkers from cannons all set up for you and waiting. The other thing you could be doing as well, and of course this is list dependent, is that if you have anything like trolls or any of the monsters' infantry, of course you have the whole thing where if they don't kill that monster's infantry, well, all of a sudden the cannonball stops. So let's say I'm playing a Wyvern. I'm going crazy, I'm going to try this thing out. When I'm moving up, if I keep it behind my trolls, first of all, they're probably going to have a hard time trying to put it between my trolls and my Wyvern because maybe they'll have trouble seeing it. Depends on which trolls we're talking about. River trolls are big and bulky and blocking and stuff. If otherwise they're trying to go through, again, for every single troll, when it's bouncing through, it has to wound. It has to get at least 3 wounds. I have to fail my regen. If at any point that stops, guess what, Cannonball? You're not making it to my Wyvern. So, you just got to plan these things out, find ways of making that, protecting your own monsters. And that's a big thing where I see where, the people that have monsters are like, oh, linear terrain, it's useless. I was going to throw it off the side here. Yeah, my monster's just going to basically stand right here. And, I'm not going to turn. I'll just go and face your cannon and give you the full way to shoot. It's just, these guys just don't go and try and defend against it. And then when their guys die, they're like, oh, cannons, this is bull. Flip the table. Cannons really have to be changed. Now, that's pretty much all I have to say of that part right there. Of course, I could say, there's some smaller case things like take Laurel Life. You can help healing these guys up. Now you have 2 armies with high elf magic, and they can be healing up their monsters' D3 wounds and stuff as well. So there's starting to be a lot of healing out there where you can actually heal your monsters. So hey, if that cannon went and did a few wounds, all right, cast a few spells from Laurel Life, I'm completely healed again. Good luck for that 7.7% chance. Otherwise I'll just heal them up again. But, another big thing here too, I guess, before we talk about that as well, is that people are sometimes not aggressive enough with their monsters. Because where's the absolute safest place to be from cannons is in combat. And what will they do with their monsters? They'll try and hold them back and try and maybe they'll go around the flank and they'll try and, okay, well, I want my monster going the same time as these troops. God, no. If there is a cannon on that other side, don't even give it a chance. Just run it up. One of the things I hear sometimes when I talk about that 20-inch fly first turn was like, well, Malorian, I'm going to get charged then. Well, that's great. You took that monster to fight that unit. That's what monsters are designed for. Between their attacks and their thunderstomps, they're there to kill that infantry. So if they want to charge you, sure, give them the 1 combat res. Whatever. You're going to thunderstomp the hell out of them. Do you have all your regular attacks? Sometimes there's a ride or two. And he's going to go and kill them all up anyway. If they get +1, whatever. They're going to be steadfast anyway, is basically what it comes down to. And maybe worst case scenario, maybe you fluff some rolls, they beat you by a little bit. Well, okay, just go and pass your, make sure you get your general up there, get your general in range, and you're probably going to be fine with re-rolls and blah, 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 right? So just, design your list with this in mind so you can be aggressive if you ever see it. Like I said, with my High Elves, when I'm running my list, I can be super aggressive. It's designed to be super aggressive. If I need to avoid cannons, guess what? I can put 5 monsters in your face turn 1. And what are you going to do, right? They're going to be all right there, right in your face, ready to fight you. So there's that. But now I want to go to the next thing, which is going to be talking about why cannons are important in the meta. Because like we were just talking about here, it's like, okay, well, the whole idea of cannons being laser guided and killing whatever they want, that's now dispelled. We've gone through the math, best case scenario, you're talking about 50% type stuff, and then it just goes down from there, right? Now, caveat to all this, if you have a lord or some character that's riding a monster, this is bad news, because when you do get hit, both parts will be hit, and at some point, one of those are probably going to be all right for wounds, right? And you're just basically taking double wounds between the rider and the character, and it's basically you saying, hey, cannon, do double damage. Well, is this a bad thing? And, one of the things that I was thinking before is in the old book, you would actually roll it off and say on a 5+, it's on the character, otherwise, it's on the monster. Well, there's others as well, though, that don't remember further back, remembering a whole time called Hero Hammer, where basically people will just make their heroes super crazy, fly them out, start killing stuff, and laugh all day. And that's really what I was almost just talking about right there, where I said, monsters are designed to destroy infantry. I can throw them into your face and let you charge me because, great, you have 3 ranks and a banner and, maybe the charge I gave you for fun. Well, between all my attacks and my Thunderstomp, I'm probably going to overcome that. If I have a character on top as well, guess what? I am going to have no problem getting 5 combat res. I am going to be crushing you every single time in that big massive unit you took. Guess what? I just had to fly a monster into your face, and now you're totally screwed. And that's a big part where it's like, well, how do you stop that? You could say, like, well, I can take infantry, and I can maybe take a champion and try and stall them and all this stuff. But man, from a guy like myself who has played from the other side, and well, both sides, and know that, hey, I'm playing, let's say, MSU Ogres back in the day. If I'm up against that Dragon Lord, it is freaking hell because I cannot control him. He's the one that's flying around dictating when he's going to be charging in, and it's not like he's even just looking at one unit. He can fly over, charge this guy. He has zounds of options. And this is another thing here too, where I think it's really important for both ogres and for demons for saying, well, why do they have these cannons? Why did they get the crazy Iron Blaster? Why did they get the crazy Skill Cannon and all this stuff? Well, it's because before, these monsters were flying around and they have no counters. Like, what are you going to do to defend yourself against some Chaos Lord that's going to be riding a Chaos Dragon? Lead Belcher him? God, no. That thing's going to come into you and crush you, right? So, picking his battles, running around your Death Star, killing everything else, it's just not going to work. So, you need a cannon to have a chance against some of these things. A lot of these other times here, we see these other monsters. Like, it's kind of really funny because you hear both sides. It's like, man, Hell Pits are crazy good. They're so stupid. Hey, Hydras are so good. I can't believe how awesome they are. Hey, Phoenixes are so good. This is ridiculous, especially when there's 2 of them. And then the counter to these guys, the thing that keeps monsters in check, is cannons. Cannons are the thing that are actually going to go and keep these guys in check and keeping people honest, saying, hey, good for you. You can take monsters. You can take 2 monsters. You can take as many monsters as you can fit. But guess what? There is a counter to this. And if you go against some dwarf army or empire army that decides to take 3 or whatever it is cannons, you're going to have a bad time as these guys go and take out these high point targets. Now, again, let's go back to that math talk. Even with all these cannons, there's only so much damage they can do, right? And again, too, we're talking about things like the Demon Prince. You know, the Demon Prince is crazy. Should not be unbreakable. But what is the weakness to these guys? The cannon. And that's really the thing again, where it's like, no matter whatever GW builds, whatever Death Star you can make, what's the counter? The cannon. The cannon is the thing that's always going to wound on a 2+, always leave you with no armor save, and do D6 wounds. So no matter what crazy thing you put together, a cannon will be the counter. And you know, I also hear some things as well, saying a cannon should not do D6 wounds. A cannon should do D3 wounds. Well, like again, if we go back to that math and we were to make this stuff being D3, why would you even take it? There is no way you're going to kill that monster before it gets in combat turn 2, you know? So it's just, why even bother doing this stuff? So cannons, we've gone through the math. We know they're not laser guided. We know their odds of killing things, even as simple as a war machine, are not very good. We have gone over that there's very simple ways to make those odds even worse by your deployment or using terrain or other factors like ward saves and stuff like that. And then at the very end here, we have talked about how the meta needs cannons to keep monsters in check. It is just a whole balancing game of, you know, this is why you see them. And, you know, it's kind of funny sometimes. I see some tournaments and stuff. Once been just did a tournament where hills are infinitely high, and you know, maybe you can't see woods in some other tournaments, right? And then what do you see in these things? You start seeing more of the Death Stars. You're seeing more of the monsters because the cannons have a harder time already, even more so, to counter these guys. So there you go. That's my say. I've been doing math and yapping my face off for half an hour. Like I say, there are many experts out there. The majority of experts out there disagree with me, but to me, I just can't say that. You know, cannons to me are right. And if you disagree with me or if you agree with me, please put your comment down below. But hey, those are my feelings. And there you go. Thanks for listening. Bye.